swift, yet every nuance etched into my mind for eternity. I pushed his door open without a sound, under the impression that he was lost in slumber. In that moment, I found myself paralyzed by the scene unfolding before my eyes. My stepson lay sprawled on the bed, legs splayed, his hand gripping the largest object I had ever encountered. It pulsed beneath his fingers, dense and weighty, measuring effortlessly over 16 inches. I ought to have walked away. I ought to have shut the door behind me and stepped away. Yet I remained. A shadowy hunger awakened within me. My heart pounded in my chest. My breath was momentarily suspended. I moved nearer, entranced. He gazed up at me, a sly smile playing at the corners of his lips. In silence, he beckoned me closer, and the weight of shame dissolved into warmth. My fingers quivered as I extended my hand toward him. He let out a low groan as I encircled him with my hand, grappling to hold all of him within my grasp. The burden was overwhelming for merely his hands to bear. In that dark, convoluted instant, he found himself in need, and I, against all odds, extended my hand. Before we delve further into this narrative, I wish to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to all who have chosen to subscribe to this channel. Your support is invaluable to me. Additionally, I encourage you to participate and express your thoughts in the comments section below. I am eager to know your thoughts as the narrative progresses. Allow me to guide you further into the night that irrevocably altered the course of my existence. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Thomas. At the age of 36, I find myself nestled in the serene suburbs of Wisconsin, embracing the life of a housewife. On the surface, my life seemed flawless. A cozy abode, a diligent partner, a stepson nearing the completion of his college journey. My husband Carter frequently journeyed for work, leaving me solitary on most evenings. I occupied the stillness with cleaning, baking, gardening, anything to combat the solitude. When Carter wed me 3 years back, I believed I had at last discovered a sense of stability. Yet beneath the facade, our marriage lay frozen and rigid. Then there was Ezra, a 19-year-old with a tall frame and golden hair. His physique sculpted through countless hours spent in the gym. He embodied the essence of youthful defiance that his father sought to stifle. Our conversations were limited to mere pleasantries, until that fateful night. Initially, the night unfolded in a manner that was quite unremarkable. The rain danced softly upon the windows, filling the air with the warm scent of vanilla candles that lingered throughout the house. As the evening unfolded, I found myself nestled on the couch, lost in the pages of a novel, making a valiant effort to stave off the familiar ache of loneliness that threatened to seep in once more. Carter had reached out to inform me that his flight was postponed. He would remain away until the following day. I chose to ascend the stairs ahead of schedule. As I strolled by Ezra's door, an unusual sound caught my attention. A soft, anguished moan. A shiver of alarm coursed up my spine. Did he sustain any injuries? With a moment's hesitation, I swung the door wide, driven by impulse, and there he stood. Ezra lay across the bed, his body relaxed yet taut, fingers gliding over an impressive length that seemed to challenge the very laws of nature. My breath caught in my throat. My mouth became parched. I felt an overwhelming urge to flee, to seek refuge. Yet I remained motionless, entranced. He caught sight of me. He pressed on, unwavering. His cerulean gaze locked onto mine, challenging me, playfully provoking me. A surge of warmth coursed through my thighs, a feeling so intense it left me lightheaded. "Come here," he murmured, his voice gravelly and deep. I ought to have escaped. My bare feet glided toward him, as though drawn by an unseen force. With each step, my heart raced with increasing intensity. I perched on the brink of his bed, my fingers quivering as they lingered just above him. "Allow me to assist you," I offered. My voice is barely audible. I encircled my hand around his thickness. The warmth of his presence scorched my flesh. He let out a sharp hiss through clenched teeth as my thumb grazed the tender underside. His size demanded both hands, so I employed them, gliding slowly up and down, attuned to every vein, every pulse. The chamber whirled with an exhilarating sense of the illicit. His breaths became increasingly labored. He bit his lip, his hips rising to meet my touch. Before I fully grasped my actions, I found myself leaning down, placing a kiss on the swollen head. He let out a low groan, his fingers tangling in my hair, directing me with a firm yet tender touch. Shame should have washed over me. I ought to have experienced guilt. What I experienced instead was an intense, ravenous hunger that consumed me. I delved into his essence, savored every moment, and surrendered completely to his being. His aroma, his noises, his immense presence engulfed me. My body reacted unabashedly, yearning, pleading for more. As he finally let go with a deep, primal growl, I eagerly consumed every drop, hungrily accepting what he offered. I withdrew gradually, brushing my lips, my heart pounding fiercely within my chest. Ezra's eyes shimmered with a shadowy intensity, revealing a sense of ownership. That was merely the start, he murmured, his tone dark and foreboding. In that fleeting moment, I realized there was no way to retreat. A boundary had been breached, and the world would never return to its former state. The morning sun poured through the windows, casting a warm and bright glow. Yet an icy dread settled deep within my bones. As I reclined in solitude, the sheets twisted around my legs. My body throbbed with the remnants of the previous night's escapades. I gazed up at the ceiling, attempting to convince myself that it had all been nothing more than a fevered dream. A dreadful, shameful illusion, destined to fade away with the dawn of a new day. Yet it was undeniably real. Each touch, every sound, every stolen breath shared between us. It had transpired, and there was no turning back. I drew the blankets tightly around my head, yearning to vanish from existence. How could I possibly meet Ezra's gaze again? How could I confront Carter when he returned home this evening? Burdened by this repugnant secret etched upon my skin? I lingered in bed longer than I typically would, only mustering the will to rise when the house fell into a hush. Reassuring me that Ezra had finally left, I found it necessary to steer clear of him. I sought to erase the memories. I stood beneath the relentless cascade of hot water, scrubbing my skin until it felt raw. Yet the memories clung to me with an unyielding grip. The manner in which Ezra had breathed my name was intoxicating. His hands tangled in my hair, a blend of authority and yearning. It was precisely how I had desired it, perhaps even with greater intensity. Tears threatened to spill from my eyes, yet I held them back resolutely. With haste, I slipped into a comfortable sweater and jeans, gathering my hair into a carefree bun. I would prepare breakfast, occupy myself with various tasks, and by the time Carter came back, life would resume its usual rhythm. Thus, I reassured myself. I entered the kitchen, and froze in place. Ezra lounged at the counter, bare-chested, with a bowl of cereal awaiting his attention. His sun-kissed skin radiated in the morning light, muscles undulating with each effortless motion. His hair clung to his forehead, damp from a recent shower, tousled and youthful. Yet, there was nothing youthful in the way he gazed at me. His gaze captured mine, slow and intentional, tracing the contours of my form with a languid confidence. My face felt aflame. I averted my eyes and occupied myself with the fridge, feigning a search for something elusive. "Good morning, Thomas," he said, his voice laced with a playful mirth. I offered a quiet greeting, my back turned to him. My hands quivered as I retrieved a carton of eggs. "You look different today," he remarked, a playful lilt in his voice. With a sense of ease, almost radiating warmth, I shut the fridge door with more force than required. "Eat your breakfast," I said, my tone more cutting than I had meant it to be. He let out a soft chuckle, the sound reverberating through the air and sending a chill racing down my spine. He whispered, a hint of sensitivity in his voice. I clumsily handled the eggs, breaking two into the sizzling pan. I focused intently on the stove, silently urging him to depart, to grant me a moment of solitude to exhale. Yet, I sensed him draw nearer. His presence hovered behind me, charged with an unsettling energy. "There's no need for pretense, Thomas," he remarked. Her voice lowered, taking on a tone that felt almost personal. "Drawing you in closer. It is clear that you found pleasure in it. The spatula slipped from my grasp, my hands balling into tight fists. "Stop," I urge, my voice quivering with emotion. "Let us refrain from discussing it, it was an error." I pivoted to confront him, determined to establish my authority, to reaffirm the limits we had so carelessly broken. Yet, upon meeting his gaze, my determination shattered. In his eyes, there lingered neither regret nor shame, only an intense, searing hunger. "You want it again," he said, stepping closer, his hand brushing against my hip. I inhaled sharply, the connection igniting a blaze within my senses. I loathed myself for the way my body so readily surrendered, leaning into him, yearning for him. "No," I whispered, though the sound felt feeble, even to my own ears. He smiled, fully aware that victory was his. He pushed me against the counter, his hands slipping beneath my sweater, fingers grazing the delicate skin of my waist. I let out a soft whimper, my body instinctively arching toward him. "You belong to me now," he declared, his voice gravelly with a fierce longing. "Last night, Thomas, you went too far. There is no turning back now." I shook my head, tears welling in my eyes. Yet, in that moment of his kiss, every objection faded away, silenced before they could escape my lips. His mouth was insistent, consuming, robbing each breath from my lungs. His hands explored with a boldness that revealed an unsettling familiarity with my form. I surrendered to him, my fingers weaving through his wet hair, drawing him nearer, craving him with an intensity I had never known. He hoisted me onto the counter with ease, parting my legs and positioning himself between them. I sighed into his mouth, my fingers gripping his bare shoulders, the kitchen resonating with the echoes of our fervent kisses, our uneven breaths, the gentle collision of skin against skin. I had never experienced such vitality, such desire, such complete surrender to chaos. As he entered me, his movements deliberate and profound, I felt a mix of pleasure and discomfort, prompting a gasp to escape my lips, my head tilting back in response. He illuminated parts of me that Carter never had, exploring depths I had yet to discover. Ezra surged forward with the wild enthusiasm of youth, each movement reverberating through my being. I held onto him, surrendering to the surging tides of ecstasy, becoming utterly lost in the moment. The counter trembled beneath us, dishes cascading to the ground, echoing in the recesses of my thoughts. I understood the madness of it all, the peril that loomed, yet I found myself indifferent. Nothing else held significance except for the emotions he stirred within me. As we finally crumpled against one another, breathless and trembling, the chaos of the kitchen swirling around us, a more chilling realization dawned upon me than the act we had just committed. I felt no regret, not even the slightest hint of it, and that realization frightened me more than anything else. Upon Carter's return that evening, the house lay enveloped in silence. I observed him from the threshold of the kitchen, my heart pounding fiercely within my chest. His smile lit up the room as he caught sight of me. Weariness etched on his face, yet joy radiating from within. He placed his briefcase down with a gentle thud and opened his arms wide, inviting me into a warm embrace. For a fleeting moment, I paused, caught in the delicate balance of uncertainty, before finally stepping into his embrace. He embraced me with fervor, planting a gentle kiss on the side of my head, whispering sweetly about how deeply he had longed for my presence. I compelled myself to smile, to nod, to engage, yet within, I sensed I was sinking beneath the weight of it all. His scent, his touch, everything about him felt alien now, marred by the secret I harbored within. Ezra lingered on the staircase, his gaze deep and inscrutable. For a brief moment, our eyes locked, and 1,000 knots twisted in my stomach. I swiftly distanced myself from Carter, feigning preoccupation with the dinner preparations. Space was essential. Contemplation was necessary. Dinner felt like an ordeal. Carter spoke with enthusiasm about his trip, completely unaware of the heavy, oppressive atmosphere surrounding him. I nodded, chuckled at the appropriate intervals, yet the flavors of the food eluded my senses. Ezra sat opposite me, his foot grazing mine beneath the table, a mischievous smirk dancing on his lips. I recoiled, sending my glass of wine tumbling to the floor. Carter sprang to my aid, a look of concern etched on his face, while I mumbled my apologies, feigning mere clumsiness. Yet, beneath the surface, a tide of panic surged within me. Another night like this was simply unbearable for me. Following the meal, Carter politely took his leave to indulge in a refreshing shower. As soon as he vanished up the stairs, Ezra trapped me in the hallway, his body pressed against mine, pinning me to the wall. "I want you again," he whispered against my ear, his hand gliding up my thigh. I pushed him aside, a tumult of fear and guilt coiling within me. "Cease this at once," I whispered fiercely. "He is upstairs, this feels amiss, as it has from the very beginning." Ezra chuckled quietly, a subtle, derisive note in his voice. "You adore it," he remarked. "You revel in the peril. You cherish the way I awaken your very essence." My eyes stung with the heat of unshed tears. I loathed him, yet my self-contempt ran deeper still. "You are but a child," I spat. "You are merely a foolish and impulsive young man." His expression shifted, the light-hearted bravado disappearing in a heartbeat. "You didn't think I was a boy when you were screaming my name in the kitchen," he said, his voice sharp and icy. Before I could rein in my impulse, my hand met his face with a sharp crack. The sharp crack reverberated through the corridor. He grazed his cheek with a delicate touch, then smiled, a slow and perilous curve of his lips. "You will return to me," he stated matter-of-factly. "Resistance is futile." He pivoted and vanished into the living room, leaving me quaking against the wall. I ascended the stairs with a sense of urgency, securing the bathroom door behind me. As I descended to the ground, tears streamed down my face, my hands cradling my sorrow. What had I wrought? What sort of woman had I transformed into? I gazed into the mirror, my visage ghostly and tormented, my eyes heavy with remorse. The woman gazing back at me was a stranger, her features unfamiliar and elusive. As the days stretched into weeks, the atmosphere within the house thickened with an unbearable tension. Ezra persisted in his torment, his fingers brushing against me when Carter's gaze was elsewhere, his sultry whispers laced with forbidden promises, audible only to me. With each encounter, my body surrendered to its own treachery. I loathed him for it, yet my self-loathing ran deeper still. Carter sensed the chasm between us, he made attempts to bridge it, to connect, yet I rebuffed him time and again. The burden of my secret was crushing me, yet I lacked the courage to reveal it, until that fateful night when everything unraveled. The hour was late. Carter had ventured out for drinks with a few colleagues. In the solitude of the house, I found myself nestled on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, attempting to immerse in a movie, seeking a semblance of normalcy. Ezra stood in the doorway, bare-chested, clad solely in a pair of sagging sweatpants. I stood still, my heart pounding fiercely within my chest. He remained silent, merely gazing at me, his eyes ablaze with desire. And like a moth drawn to the fire, I found myself consumed by him. With 3 purposeful strides, he traversed the room, yanked the blanket away from me, and enveloped me in his embrace. His lips collided with mine, and I surrendered completely. We never reached the bedroom, it all unfolded right there on the couch. He seized me once more, with a fervor that was both wild and urgent, asserting his possession over me as if I were his to command. The sound of the front door creaking open barely reached my ears. Carter's voice barely reached me as he called out my name. Yet, Ezra listened intently. He withdrew from my presence just as Carter entered the living room. In that fleeting instant, time itself seemed to pause. Carter gazed at us, his expression a blend of disbelief and terror. His gaze fell upon my untidy attire, the remorse etched across my features, and the unrefined pleasure still lingering in Ezra's smirk. Comprehension emerged gradually, with a sense of struggle. Carter recoiled, as though he had been hit by an unseen force. "Thomas," he whispered, his voice trembling, as tears cascaded down my cheeks. I attempted to articulate my thoughts, to offer an explanation, yet no words seemed adequate, no justifications capable of undoing my actions. Carter spun on his heel and dashed away from the house. the door crashing shut in his wake. I fell to the floor, tears streaming down my face, my entire being trembling with sorrow. Ezra loomed above me, his expression a complete enigma. This was always destined to occur. He murmured softly, "You simply never wished to acknowledge it." I shouted at him to leave. He departed in silence, without uttering a single word. As I lingered on the living room floor, the dawn broke, leaving me in solitude with my guilt, my shame, and the fragmented remnants of my existence. Carter never returned. I lost him, I lost everything, and the weight of it all rests squarely on my shoulders.